Welcome to the For the Love of the Game podcast with Johnny K this week, episode 3, Mental Health and Lessons from Growing Up, where Johnny shares a handful of stories and lessons he's learned growing up and suffering from his share of mental health challenges, something a lot of us deal with but don't talk about enough. Let's get into it.
Episode 3, John Coleus, For the Love of the Game podcast. I'm sporting my Houston t-shirt. That campaign went well. Thanks to everyone's help with that. We raised $5,000 for the Terry Fox Foundation, a buddy of mine. And thanks. If you're one of the recipients of this nice t-shirts, it's all because of you. So thank you very much. What are we going to talk about? Episode 3. Before I get started, I want to thank everyone for the texts, the messages, comments, constructive criticisms, everything to do with my new venture on the podcast. It is helpful. I appreciate it. I'm going to keep going and making a monthly podcast. And thanks for the encouragement. Thanks for listening, watching, whatever you're doing here, working out or driving in the car or just going for a walk. So episode 3, what are we going to talk about? I have some news for the month of November. I've been asked to be an MC at a very important gala, and the primary sponsor of this gala is Bruce Power. It's a big deal, and the gala has 3 foundations coming together to raise funds for over 8,000 children in our community. And without further ado, Foundation 1, Keystone Child, Youth, and Family Services. They focus on mental health. The Bruce Gray Child and Family Services, they are there to protect kids and families, and they do a great job. And third, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and they're there to kind of give kids a chance, take them out, let them see the world a little bit. Some of the kids that aren't as fortunate as others, and they're there to do a job and to shine some light on these young kids. So when I was asked to be the MC, I said absolutely right away. It's going to be November 16th, and it's going to be at Cobble Beach, Owen Sound, Ontario. It's a black tie affair, so I'm going to put my suit on, probably the same suit I wore to my nephew's wedding in September. It's a gray suit. I hope it still fits, and I'm going to be there. And I'll be introducing some guests. We'll be talking about the foundations, maybe try to crack a few jokes, and then I'm going to be an auctioneer, but not like a real live auctioneer. I'm going to just talk about the live auction, the silent auction, and just try to get the bids going. I'm not going to talk a million miles an hour because it's not my thing, but I might try. You never know. I still have some time to get into some auctioneering here. But about the foundations, I feel like I could speak to all 3 of these. And starting with Keystone Mental Health, that foundation does a lot of great things for young kids when it comes to mental health. How do you cope with mental health? Being almost a recipient of mental health. I don't know if that makes sense. Having mental health before, having it still to this day at times. I know mental health is a tough thing, especially for young kids, because that was the one thing about mental health when I was younger and I was struggling with depression. I thought that this was the rest of my life. Every day is going to feel like this. And it's until you become an adult. And depression hit me the hardest when I was 21 years old. And I had it for a whole year, but I struggled for a whole year big time. And then I started to figure out how to cope. And I know I talked about it in previous podcasts about moving my feet, keeping busy, surrounding myself with good people, hanging out with friends. And that's how I dealt with my depression. But Keystone is a foundation that helps the young deal with their challenges in mental health. And they're very important. Like I said, over 8,000 kids in our area need help, and Keystone with the mental health is one of them, and they're doing a great job. So thank you, Keystone, and we're going to do our best to raise as much money at that gala for sure. Next is Bruce Gray Child and Family Services, and the family services part, I had a little bit of that when I was a kid, to be honest with you. I do remember being in front or talking to It was my two sisters, my mom and I, and we're talking to family services. It was awkward. They would ask questions, and I didn't know how to answer them. And in my head, I was thinking, do I really tell this person the truth? And there was silence. And there was silence because, it was just a confusing time in my life and our lives. And it was just, obviously someone wasn't silent or we wouldn't have been there. But I just remember being 12 years old, grade 7, maybe grade 8, somewhere around there. And Child and Family Services were trying to get to they wanted to make sure that everything was well in the household and there was no wrongdoings, and they were doing their best, but we stayed silent because we didn't know any other way. And that goes way back to the days of when we lived in Goderich, Ontario, Bennett Street East, Victoria Public School. I remember coming home one night, one day after school. I'd always race home, try to beat my sisters. And I remember coming home one day, going through the front door of our townhouse on Bennett Street there. And I just stopped dead in my tracks because what I saw was nothing unusual. It's something that I'd seen before. Like the table was upside down. The chairs were scattered. It looked like a huge brawl had happened in my kitchen. And then I just remember how quiet it was. And I remember the one thing, besides seeing the chairs tipped over and the table and all that, I was used to that. But one thing I wasn't used to was, as crazy as it sounds, this big white wall that we had in the kitchen, and there was a coffee stain on it. And I'm not sure if you know what Greek coffee is. It's really thick, it's chalky looking, and it's almost like paint. And if you threw it or splattered it against the wall, you would get some type of design. And I was just like looking at this, scared shitless, and so silent. And then it hit me, where's my mom, and is she okay? And that was terrifying. And the other thought was, how soon would it be until he came back? And talk about needing an association or a foundation like Child and Family Services. And that's what this group does. They go into homes and they can tell right away, I feel like, if something is not good. And their job is to protect children, protect families. And in our situation back in Goderich in the early 80s, my mom didn't know any English, hardly none, and just 3 kids. So, and all her side of the family resided across the pond in Greece. So, we stayed silent because we didn't know what to say, what to do, where to go. But I feel now that we're into 2024, there's more resources, there's more ways of communicating, and the silence is what we kept doing. But I also feel that, and what keeps me up at night, and I think about this a lot, is the silence that either in today's world, someone knows there's wrongdoing in the house, there's domestic violence, there's something not good going on, and they stay silent. I know in my situation back when I was a kid, I'm positive people knew. I'm positive people had an assumption, and I wish they would have said something. I wish they would have said something earlier, and maybe my mom and my sisters and I wouldn't have to go through that. But I just want to thank Child and Family Services of Bruce Grey and all of them around for doing what you do. And you're there to protect 8-year-old Johnny K from the 80s in Goderich, Ontario. And I'm proud to be here and proud to be speaking on my podcast and at the gala about how important this group is. So that's a little story about my experience, but it doesn't have to be that way. And they're out there and they're fighting the good fight. So thank you, Bruce Grey Child and Family Services. Number 3 foundation, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, close to my heart. I love this foundation. And it's more that I feel like, sometimes kids don't have mom and dad. They could take them out to a ball game or take them to the library or take them swimming, something fun. And Big Brothers and Big Sisters, they align adults with young children and they let them have those experiences. They put smiles on their faces, and they're an important part of making a childhood happy, because when you have a happy childhood, you have happy memories as an adult. And I can speak for that for sure. I have a memory. I can't tell you what I did last week, but I can tell you stuff that's happened to me 30 years ago, 40 years ago, baseball games, what was the score, all that type of stuff. So quick little story on the Big Brothers, Big Sisters side. We have a TikTok, and it's social media. And one night, Charlie and I were just hanging on the couch. It was a Monday night, and we got a message on our TikTok from a U13 hockey player about an hour and a half from here in Durham. And the ask was, hey, can you come watch me play hockey tonight? And I instantly thought of me as a kid, how I loved people watching me play. So I turned to Charlie and I said, Charlie, what do you think? Do you want to drive? And he goes, let's go, Dad. So get in the car, January. It wasn't, the weather was fine, but it was an hour and a half to get there. And once I walked in the door, I had that feeling like, I know why I'm here. And it was just a good vibe I was getting. We get to the glass. I knew what number he was. And he does that skate, and I do it all the time, and he does the nod. Like he acknowledged that we were there, and he can tell he was smiling, and boy, he had a great game. I've never seen him play before, but he was working hard in the corners. He was grinding. He had an extra jump in his step, and I was just happy to see that. And after the game, we go down to the dressing room, we talk to their coaches, and we got a picture with them, and then after we went to the lobby, and we met his family, and we had a good talk with his family, and we had a really good talk with his grandma. And his grandma had just found out that we were coming that night, and she wasn't really sure if we were going to make it, but we made it, and she shared some information about what he was going through. There were some tough times at school, some bullying, but most importantly, his mom and dad were going through a really tough breakup, and he hadn't smiled in a long time, and he was sad. And he was just so happy to see us. So I'm really happy that we could put a smile on his face. We've kept in touch. We've been to a couple of his games since then. It's been 2 years, and we've had over 50 game asks. Actually, we've had, I would say, maybe a couple hundred legit game asks. We can only make it to so many, but we've gone to 50. And, we've gone from everywhere from Bell River to Collingwood, to Sarnia, Kincardine, Godridge, Orangeville, all over. And if we can make it, we go. And it's the same thing. We meet someone, shake their hand, take a picture, and, talk to their folks. And it's just, I feel like, we put a smile on their face. And I remember what it was like for me. If someone told me when I was a kid that they were going to come watch me play, holy smokes, I was super excited. My parents, they worked in the restaurant industry, so any game time wasn't a good time for them because they were in the restaurant business, couldn't leave. But sometimes there'd be a regular that would always be in there, and he would just ask me, hey, Johnny, do you play hockey tonight? I said, yeah, I play at 7 o'clock. And he said, okay, I'll come. And I'm like, he's not really going to come. You're warming up? What are you doing? You're looking around, you're scanning the crowd. There he is. He's in the crowd. And same thing. Just like we were watching that kid in Mitchell, I had a jump in my step. I was trying harder. I was just so happy that he took the time out of his day to come watch me play. So I really think that Big Brothers and Big Sisters play an important part in that. They're all about creating good memories, and that foundation, along with the other two, play a big part in these over 8,000 kids in our area, and just their well-being, putting smiles on their face, and just being part of the community. So I'm excited about being the MC, for sure. And I'm sure I'm excited about being an auctioneer, but I'm going to do my best. And, when I was thinking about, when I was asked to be the MC, I thought about the foundations. I was thinking about how all three have played a role in my life along the way. I thought of our brand, For the Love of the Game. And you know what? It kind of just, when I talk about being young and Keystone Mental Health, I kind of found my own recipe or my own my own way of dealing with things when I was a kid. And I remember the first time I walked into an arena. It was in Goderich, Ontario, the Memorial Arena. They don't play hockey there anymore. The building's still there. And I remember just walking into the rink. And to this day, you could probably blindfold me and take me in there. I can tell you where I was. It had a musty smell. The canteen was there. I smelled popcorn for the first time. Not for the first time, but in an arena. And I'm thinking, is this really possible? They have a canteen that sells food, and then I can watch a hockey game all at the same time. And at that point, I knew that I loved the game of hockey. And then the other thing that I figured out really quickly, because I played my first year of hockey in Goderich, and despite all that was going on at home, playing hockey for the first time, which I thought would be easy. I remember watching kids play and thinking, I can skate for sure. This is going to be a no-brainer. I was probably the 1 foot pusher for the first couple weeks, but then I got my stride. Then I got it going. But I remember thinking how much fun it was and how it was impossible for me to think about any negativity anywhere when I was playing hockey, when I was playing sports. And that was my remedy, my medicine, and that kept me going. That was the distraction I needed to push through. We only lived in Goderich a few years, but then we moved to Kincardine, Ontario, and started playing hockey there. And what I found out too is the more I was at the rink, the better I felt. But I was always the kid in the dressing room that took it super hard when we lost. And not every game lost, but if we got knocked out of the playoffs or the season was over, it was sad because I knew that I had to spend more time at home, and at the time, it just wasn't good. For example, I remember being in grade 8, and my sister had ran away from home, Ange, and I didn't know where she was, and I was scared. I was so scared. I didn't know if someone had kidnapped her. I didn't know if she was alive or dead. And at the time, I was in grade 8, and I was playing Pee Wee hockey. And I just remember how tough it was to keep busy. I remember some of my sister's older friends, they'd ask where Ange is, and I would say, oh, she's going to school somewhere else or whatever. It was tough. But when I went to the rink, and I played hockey. I played hockey for Ian McKegney that year. He was my Pee Wee hockey coach, and played on, a lot of good guys. Funny that I still golf with some of these guys: Jay Bell, Mark Wappett, Jordan Willis, Mike Daze, a lot of close friends that I still talk to today. But that Pee Wee team, that Pee Wee year was really tough, and it was all because at home, I didn't know. So that was the remedy for me. And then when hockey was over, I knew that I had to get my ball glove out, get my cleats. I played a bit of soccer, but I needed to get going. I needed to do another sport, play another sport. I would umpire, but I would always keep busy because there was a game. The game was a distraction, and that's why I loved it so much. And that's where my brand comes from, too. Sometimes people ask me where the brand came from. And I know, well, Johnny loves sports. He owns a sports store. He loves hockey, but it's more to that than me. It's everything that, it's kind of like all the memories that I had as a kid, I blocked out through sports. So for the love of the game, in my opinion, it saved me as a kid. And I still do my best to, play some sports as an adult. I love watching my kids play. And that's where my brand came from, for the love of the game. And that's where I see the connection with, all three of these, mental health, hoping, you want to make sure that you can think straight and you can cope, child and family services. You want to make sure you have a good home base, because that's the hardest part as a kid. Excuse me. When you don't have a home base, as a kid, all I wanted was a white picket fence, and I wanted our family to be just like everybody else's. But not knowing that not every family is perfect and everyone has their challenges, I just want it to be normal. I want it to be normal, and that's where Child and Family Services comes in, and they do their best to protect kids and families, and then big brothers, big sisters, like I talked about, just being there for kids, watching them, taking them to places that they probably never have a chance to go to, Blue Jay game, maybe a play, museums, all this stuff to stay busy. And that's where I see the connection with my brand For the Love of the Game and the 3 foundations and the gala. And only 200 tickets are going to be sold for this event at the Cobble Beach Golf Course. And why don't you come? It's going to be great. It's going to be a great event. There's a good meal there. There's live auction. And I think it'll be a good night out, and you could help these foundations raise some money, and it's going to a great cause. So if you're available November 16th and you want to buy some tickets, I'll leave some information below in this podcast, and you can think about it. But I'll be the MC, and I'm looking forward to it. And I just want to, once again, thank all 3 foundations for asking me to be the MC. I'll do my best, and I can't wait. And this is for the kids, and there's 8,000 of them. And all we want at the end of the day is for them to be adults and have happy childhood memories. So that's episode 3, folks. I'm Johnny K. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next month.